Hi everyone, my name is Holly, and I did something very different this year. Instead of doing an anticipated releases video every season or just at the beginning of the year, I made one for every single month, and I'm really glad I did that. A lot of you seem to like it. I know a lot of fantasy fly under the radar, some indie books even, adult fantasy in general, I feel like, especially here on BookTube, so I'm very happy to have done so. In fact, I talked about 205 2020 book releases, which is crazy, especially since I only read like 60 total books this year. You can say something mean about that all you want, I can take it. But I thought it would be fun to talk about some of the new releases that I did read this year. There's actually quite a few and I can't get to all of them, but this leads me into the second new type of video that I started doing this year, and that is my Should You Read It series. Book review videos, which I feel like should be the foundation of BookTube. I wish they were, but unfortunately they get the least amount of views typically. One can get caught in the ring of fire, but it's rare. They are more likely to get more views over time, but it's still a really small fraction. So I had a goal in mind to rebrand it, I guess, try to make it more fun, more clickable, so that people who may not have been interested in the book to begin with, which is where your loss of views come from, might be once they saw it, and that's all that mattered to me. Get people to read these possibly underrated books. I did extra editing, like I said, I tried to make it more fun. The Should You Read It playlist will be linked down below for you, though I didn't do too many. My goal at the beginning of the year was to be a good ARC reviewer and stay on top of Orbit books in particular, and I stuck to my guns for a good chunk of the year, but reading became harder and harder for me as the year went on, unfortunately. I am the type of reader where if I'm stressed, I don't read because I can't concentrate. Also, Among Us and Phasmophobia took over my life, and Watch Dogs Legion, and Cyberpunk. Thank God I'm waiting to maybe get the PS5 one day to play Assassin's Creed Valhalla, or you'd never see me again. But the PS5 does not exist. Quite a few 2020 releases I'll actually be talking about in my best and worst books of the year video coming out soon, so I'm going to leave all of those out so you don't have to hear any repeats. So one of the first new releases I read in 2020 was The Bard's Blade. Though the cover kind of just screams at you because it's gorgeous and gives you this sense of adventure, it's a quiet fantasy, I feel like. It's kind of calming and relaxing in a weird way. It's also a bit of a portal fantasy, at least in some form of the word. It's following two characters who are a couple. They live in a small cozy village, and just outside the village is this magical barrier that you're not supposed to cross. In fact, rumor has it that if you even touch it, you'll just disappear. Be lost forever. No one even knows why it's there, except it must be protecting the land. Just don't go near it. Well, you can imagine how confused everyone is when a stranger comes through it with a very heavy news. Overall, this book has fantastic world building. There's this mystery that builds and builds upon itself. The writing itself is very simple and easy to read, and that may catch people off guard. I enjoyed it, and I recommend it to people who might be new to fantasy. Ravencollar. This is the sequel to Soulkeeper, truly one of the most underrated fantasies mankind has ever done dirty. I love this series. I might be talking about Soulkeeper in my best books of the year videos coming soon, and though this one isn't quite making the list, it came so close. But I still want to talk about it a little. No spoilers, by the way, I promise. I'm pretty positive the third one, the finale, which is coming out in February, is going to be a banger. I cannot wait to read it. In fact, I actually have it on my Kindle. But there's just something special about reading these books physically, and I really want to keep that tradition. We'll see if I can resist the urge, though. If you're looking for a fantasy that is action-packed and showcases all kinds of different monsters, has characters that aren't just black and white, they question themselves, there's wholesomeness, blood and gore, just everything. Even romance, which actually was what held this book back from me from being a favorite. Every main character begins a relationship, which is fine, just not my cup of tea personally, but yeah, Soulkeeper we'll be talking about again very soon. The Trouble with Peace. This book actually didn't make it to my best books of 2020 list. I know, super weird, but rethinking about it, I just found myself frustrated with the first half of it. It took me quite a while to get into it, and I loved it. I mean loved A Little Hatred. But being honest and not seeing through a lens of Joe Abercrombie obsession, I was disappointed. I should be clear, I still really enjoyed this. I mean, I bought a freaking special signed edition. It's still great, but the pacing seemed really off for me. The ending of A Little Hatred was so freaking mind-blowing that it's a brush off the shoulder in this sequel, and it's the consequences and character reactions to that I was most excited to see. So I'm quite salty about that. And then I have Shortfall, which came out in 2020. This is the sequel to Foundryside, a very popular series that I truly enjoyed. I think it's fantastic, and this follow-up was fantastic. In fact, I even think the sequel improved greatly in the characterization department. The first book had the setup and world building, introduction to the magic system, and this just gets it going. There's even pretty solid arcs for each of the main characters, and they just felt so smooth. We get to see more of the villain in the sequel, and any amount of page time that he had, I loved. I wanted to see more of it actually, which we'll hopefully be seeing in book 3. The twist at the end of this book was so insane, and I need to know what's going to happen. How the hell is the story going to continue? I don't know. The city that this takes place in is just so fun to read about. There's so much depth to it, and I think a reread of the series is going to be really fun in the future. Horrid. This is another new release I read this year, kind of recently actually, and this one was just okay. It's a YA contemporary thriller. It's one of those short books that is written well enough to keep you reading. Sentences go really fast. There is a mystery that of course you want to know the answer to, but it's so incredibly basic. It's very linear. There's no flavor to anything. Also, predictable to the point that I guessed the big twist from the synopsis, so maybe I recommend not reading that. I did really like the atmosphere from the small town this takes place in. In fact, residents of the small town know something about the house the narrator moves into at the beginning of the novel, and that's really intriguing. It's definitely a mixed bag of good and bad, but it's a one and done book. I mean, it's a short standalone, so that makes sense, but it wasn't something that I felt like I needed to own. But if you do give it a chance, I hope it's something that surprises you. So there's actually a couple other YA books that I felt very similar about. Another one is Scavenge the Stars. I really liked the beginning, but my enjoyment fell off really quickly, probably when the romance kicked in. And then there was Shielded. This one was also very in the middle for me, nothing special besides the gorgeous cover, which is why I picked it up in the first place. See, I did open up my heart to YA this year, and it broke it. And the last book I think I'm talking about today is Burning Roses, another Tor novella that I desperately wish was a full 400 pages novel, because damn, it would have been great. I mean, it was enjoyable, but it could have been better with length. It's a queer Asian adult fantasy following two old women. It's full of fairy tale retellings like Beauty and the Beast, Goldilocks. It just ends with so many unanswered questions, and I truly feel like in my heart, if this had been a normal sized book, dang, it would have changed the world. So that is all I have time for today. I hope you enjoyed this little throwback of some of the new 2020 releases I have talked about. I do hope to continue this series of mine. In fact, I should have a January new releases video coming up in about a week or so. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. I upload videos every single week, and give this video a big thumbs up for me because it helps me out so much. Follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram at HollyHeartsBooks and on Twitter Holly Niece, and until we meet again, happy reading.